Good day. On behalf of Spotit and Cisco, I'd like to welcome you at our Cisco Live Recap webinar. My name is Steen van de Bury, and I'll be your host for today. I'm sure you are all familiar with Cisco Live Amsterdam. It is the place in Europe to discover the latest Cisco innovations. Each year, more than 15,000 attendees, so it's really the place where you can hear great messages. This year, the key message was to showcase simplicity, security, and of course, AI readiness. In the coming hour, we will tell you all about it, but first, some practical arrangements. First of all, you are all muted to avoid interference during the webinar. Secondly, this session is recorded and you'll get the recording afterwards. Same with the presentation, you'll get that afterwards as well. If you have questions, please send these to us via the chat function, and at the end of the webinar, we'll have a Q&A to answer your questions. Before we dive into Cisco Live Recap, I want to give you a quick update on Spotit and our portfolio, because not all people here present today are fully aware of who we are and what we do. Who we are? Well, that's simple. We are 100 plus experts who are dedicated on focusing on cybersecurity and networking. Nothing more, nothing less. But in that niche, we have a broad portfolio, a 360 portfolio. First of all, we can help you in creating your strategy and roadmap. We offer all kinds of assessments that can help you there. Secondly, of course, we can implement your security and networking solutions and making sure that it stays in great condition. Thirdly, if you need consulting services like a CISO as a service, a DPO, or NIS2, you can count on our consulting team. And last but not least, our managed services. You can, if you say, I leave it to Spotit, then you can count on our Network Operations Center and our Security Operations Center. That's in a nutshell what we offer today. If we look at last year, what are popular Spotit services, then, well, I would highlight definitely our penetration testing. Our ethical hackers trying to get in your network or in your IT environment, it's quite popular. And yeah, I would say if you haven't done it yet, now is the time. Secondly, last year, we also revamped our CCERT service. And over there as well, we see more and more companies signing in that retainer service. And last but not least, of course, with the NIS2 law, the NIS2 assessment remains popular also this year. News from the Spotit House itself. On January, we also kicked off our business unit OT. This is led by Eric Denert and Mathieu Millikan. So if you have OT challenges, well, don't hesitate to contact them or just have a look on our website and have a look at our OT security and networking portfolio. Meeting the speakers. Well, first of all, we have Frederik Rasgaard. He's our CTO and I would say a frequent visitor of Cisco Live Recap. And of course, over there, he gets a lot of inspiration for Spotit and he'll give you the highlights as well. And on the other side, we have Victor and Frank from Cisco. Well, they will dive into the latest, greatest regarding cybersecurity and networking. Voila, that's my message to start. Frederik, the floor is yours.
All right, welcome to all of you. Start by sharing my screen. Here we go. So everybody can hear me? So the year has passed and yeah, another Cisco Live took place. I was one of the 15,000 guys and girls that were lucky to go there and get inspired by all the technology messages that Cisco has brought to us in 2025. As yeah, I can still say that I'm a bit technical, hopefully. So to start this recap, I would like to share how I look at Cisco and what I've learned at Cisco Live. It is my honest and my transparent opinion in how we as a managed service provider and technology reseller look at a vendor like Cisco. And to confirm that it's honest, I will immediately start by putting the elephant in the room on the table. Like this. Cisco hasn't got the best reputation in security. I think many people in the cybersecurity market are aware of that, know that, doubt sometimes about their intentions there and so on. So I think we need to address this. Cisco, nevertheless, has invested a lot of money in security and really has the ambition to be a leader in cybersecurity. I will share my high-level view on Cisco security and its evolutions. So to do that, we start by looking back to the period of 2016 to 2018. It is my belief that Cisco had a revolutionary vision back then to build a platform instead of standalone products. Cisco was one of the first pulling this card out of their sleeves. Other leading vendors, like the competition today, they jumped on the same train afterwards, but Cisco was one of the first to do this. And this vision was based on some great products and nice integration framework, sort of a security middleware, if you can call it that way. The products, some of you might know them, like ThreatGrid, AMP, Umbrella, and so on. Back then, AMP was really an innovative EDR solution. Cisco had a good vision and some very good point solutions as well to try and write this vision and execute it. But they kept on struggling with the firewall. As you all are aware, ASA versus firepower, SourceFire, and so on. Multiple management interfaces, bugs, unclear whether it was going to be ASA or firepower, or which one was going to be integrated in which one. There were great products, but over time, there was also little evolution in the product. So like AMP, it was a great product, but it evolved too slowly compared to the competition. The competition caught up and accelerated, resulting in better products, according to me. So the execution of the vision, which is, I think, still the right one, was not always successful. Back then, Cisco had the vision to build one management system, for example, CDO, but many features were not available. In the beginning, you couldn't even build a layer 7 firewall rule, for example. To conclude, the vision was and is still very good for me. The execution, however, was too poor, resulting in a decreased reputation in security. We as Spotit, we were worried, therefore. They were still very good and distinctive products, such as DNS security, email security, and so on. Huge efforts were done to bring the firewall back to par, but the overall vision, however, seemed to be missing. It was also very unclear what the futures of some products would bring. We therefore closely tracked everything that was going on in the Cisco security world. And last year, we had many meetings at Cisco Live with security executives to confront her with our opinion. And then we started to feel the change. So instead of denying that there were issues with the technology and that it was all going to be solved pretty soon, executive leaders started to acknowledge that there were issues and that there needed something to change. It was the first time that we felt this change. There were acknowledgements of the unclear vision and the not so well execution of the vision. There were promises to optimize the firewall. There were ideas of an adjusted vision. Platform approach was distinctive and innovative. No dragging behind anymore. Innovate and run first again, instead of trying to cope with the competition and keep on investing in the same thing that was already running behind. So a new wind began to blow. So all this to bring to you that this year the new wind was very clearly at Cisco Live in Amsterdam. There is a clear vision now. Products have improved. The organization has been adapted. For example, all development is centralized under G2 Patel. Quality and innovation are key in the strategy. So this print screen is one of the keynotes. It was the the key message actually in G2's keynote. So he wants to build products that people love. Quality is priority zero, and we want to think 10 times ahead of the competition and start innovating way more than just bringing products up to par. And that's stuff that I personally really like, because quality is, I think, the most important thing when you develop products. It is not only mentioned in the keynote, we can also see confirmation of the new strategy and vision. For example, newer products, for example, identity intelligence, Hypershield, and so on. These are not products that are, for especially Hypershield, that are fully production ready for every environment, but they're also not pushed into the market anymore. There is a more deliberate approach in going to the markets, more for specific use cases, so you can feel, okay, we can test with it, we can play with it, we can start using it in certain cases, not for everybody. The security cloud control approach is one that I like. So it's a unified management interface from the cloud. Most firewall features can be managed from there, but also newer products such as identity intelligence, Hypershield, and so on are directly integrated and managed from the security cloud, which is a good sign according to me. There is a huge investment in Splunk as a clear vision of what Cisco wants to do with this. There are proper integrations, and there is a awareness of overlaps in products and portfolio, and they are bringing those together, so there's not competing features anymore between different Cisco products. And I think that's a huge change as well, because in the past that was sometimes a problem. So in my humble opinion, the first steps were needed to convert Cisco into a leading security vendor have been taken. The foundation is there to make it a success. I saw a good vision and execution of it, and interesting and very cool products and a nice evolution in existing ones. So as from the security part, I believe we as Spotit can truly maximize value on great security technology. And that brings us needless to the networking part. Here I can be a bit more straightforward. As you may hope and hopefully experienced, one of the strategic pillars of Spotit is to enable technology to maximize value. And compare it to home automation systems. That's my way of comparing value in technology. My apologies. If you deploy a home automation system and you have like 15 light switches in your living room just to control the light, that's not bringing value out of the system into your life. Bringing value out of the system into your life is making sure that when you enter the room, you are detected. When it's in the morning, the lights go on. If it's still dark outside, the curtains open up and your favorite radio station starts to play. That's bringing value, and that is what we would like to do with technology as well. And I think I've been working on over 25 years with Cisco products. That Cisco products have always had the opportunity to bring value to any company that is working with it, and that didn't change. And on the contrary, at Cisco Live in 2025, I learned that they are extending it, that there is a very good strategy on network innovations and quality. There are welcoming improvements, stuff that people have been asking for a long time, such as improvements on how Meraki networks can be troubleshooted and so on. There are very cool innovations. Meraki and Catalyst switches have been brought together. They can run now from both on-prem and cloud managed on the same device. So very cool stuff there as well. And Frank and Victor will enlighten you guys with more information on that later on. So I've learned that Cisco confirms to be the leader in networking. The vision is clear, the innovations are the right ones, and the quality has been taken into account. So what the key takeaways for Spotit Live after Cisco Live is that Cisco is a reliable leading vendor There's a clear strategic focus on quality, innovation, and lovable products. Platform is still the way to go. The current execution is as it should, according to me. And we as Spotit believe that we can create value with these products. Concerning the new stuff, we track this very closely. Once the time is right, we deploy them in our own internal environment. We build expertise on this so we can guide and assist you in selecting the best technologies and maximizing the value for you. So this concludes my high-level view on Cisco Live. I would like to dig a bit deeper now and share a brief view of the technologies that got my attention in Amsterdam. And to do this, I will use a concept network and security architecture as a reference. For some of those who attended previous events, you might have seen this one, so I'm going to repeat myself a little bit here, but it's to make a point. The point is that such a vision can actually be built, and people or companies or vendors are innovating in these areas as well. So this is a high-level picture of an architecture that I would pick out and run if I needed to build a company's greenfield network and security infrastructure. I would deploy an SSE to run all network security. All users get connected to the SSE either through VPN, ZTNA, or using SD-WAN or another VPN solution. We run different flavors of cloud security as close to the application as possible, create visibility everywhere in the environment, and create a very multi-layered security approach, managing and monitoring users' experience everywhere. So as soon as the user experience would drop, that we can pinpoint where it is and can troubleshoot it very efficiently. So all of the data is being sent to security monitoring platforms, and SOC and NOC analysts are running the infrastructure and monitoring it. So this is my high-level view of how a greenfield architecture would look like, and many innovations that inspired me at Cisco Live can really be put on this map. So for example, Hypershield, which is the zero trust approach in the data center, protecting applications and servers as close to the application as running, distributed to everywhere in the long run, currently available on data center infrastructure, and as announced later on by Frank in some other spaces as well. Secure access as an SSE platform to connect and protect all users. Identity intelligence, a really interesting one to bring visibility on all your identities that are running in wherever cloud. So Microsoft, Okta, and so on, bring them all together and really bring visibility on your identity posture. A huge change in wireless with bringing ultra reliable wireless connections for high demanding and critical environments such as robotica or driving vehicles that need wireless connections without interruptions. XDR to highlight all the to highlight and bring very actionable alerts out of your environment into security incidents and increase the productivity of the SOC. And many, many more. I think Frank and Victor will touch them all. So I'll hand the word over to them. So should you have any questions for me, you may ask them in the chat or at the end of the Q&A. And Frank and Victor, by this, I leave it to you. So enlighten us with all the innovations, I would say.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Frederik and Stan and Frederik. Thanks for giving us, for organizing this Cisco Live recap webinar and giving us the opportunity to indeed share some of those innovations. So yeah, I think you can all see the slide. So yeah, Stan already quickly introduced us, but I'll give the opportunity.
Yeah. So I'm Victor. And not Frank.
He's Victor, I'm Frank. And so, yeah, the great challenge we have is to explain you like 5 days fully packed with innovations and one launch after the other in 30 minutes. Okay, so we're going to try to do that, but we're not going to be fully complete. So it's going to be some of the highlights of the announcements. And I think it was already announced, but if you're interested, you go to YouTube, you will find the keynotes, you will find 20, 30, 40 hours of information on YouTube about the event. It's our biggest event, 17,000 people, among which 600 from Belgium. So this is really the event attended by our Belgian customers. If any one of you after this presentation would be interested to join Cisco Live, so the next one is in San Diego, which is not bad either. That's in June. Then you have Melbourne, and then next February it will be again in Amsterdam for the European Cisco Live. So let's immediately kick it off. Frederik already indicated it. There were important changes within Cisco's organization, and all of engineering came under one and the same person, Jitu Patel. And that had some important and I think interesting consequences, because it meant that our business units were less innovating in silos, but were more innovating in bringing solutions together into true value solutions for you. And we will also be going over those in the next half an hour. And really, this is about helping you as your IT is your infrastructure environment becomes more and more critical. We believe it needs to become more and more digital resilient, meaning giving you unseen visibility like you never had before, so that you can act faster, can act more efficient, and can make sure that your environment runs at the level you want. And also, of course, together with it, make it more secure, make it more security resilient against anything that might happen. And that's the digital resiliency. We will also cover future-proof workplaces, and future-proof workplaces look at this in its broadest sense. This is the office environment where you want to get your people back into the office. This is also their home office environment, but this is also your warehouse, your retail store, your factory, your robot floor, your production floor, all of that. We want to make sure that it's connected and that it's securely connected. Of course, we need to talk about AI, so we will also talk about how we see data centers evolve towards AI-ready data centers, and all of that with a secure global connectivity. Throughout the half an hour, you will see that not only we will allow you to run AI better on our devices and on our solutions, but that we are also infusing AI into all solutions. What do we hope that is a differentiator from Cisco towards you? Well, first of all, it's the fact that we control the whole chain. So we built our own silicon, and you will see some innovations where you will see the advantage of the fact that we built our own silicon, we built our own hardware, we design our own hardware. On top of that hardware, we drive innovation through software in a platform-driven approach. A platform where we will give you the choice to operate this on-prem or cloud, and you will see it everywhere, the choice to go on-prem or to go cloud, to have the same functionalities over both, but we will give you the choice. And then, of course, to make those environments more simple to secure, more simple to operate, and more performant, and that's also within the platform approach. We will put on top of that AI capabilities so that you get even better ways of insight in what is happening into the platform, and that it will also become easier through natural language processing to AI assistants to operate and to interact with that platform. So very high level, let's go a bit deeper. Let's immediately dive in one of the main blocks. I think Stan already mentioned it. The word AI fell like 5 days in a row. So AI-ready data centers. It's an evolution from your current data center. So you will continue to have your current workloads, your current applications, but you will have additional AI-based applications. We did an AI readiness assessment. 93% of companies see AI come into their environment in the next 18 months. true AI workloads. Only 30% believe that their environment, their infrastructure is ready for that. What is so special about AI infrastructure? Well, first of all, you need to interconnect the AI nodes. They need new bandwidths. They need new speeds. This is the evolution to 400 gig and 800 gig networking. Secondly, they interconnect memory. So they need Ethernet, but they need lossless Ethernet, which is new innovations and new standards that we have been developing. Secondly, on the compute side, it needs CPUs, but it also needs accelerators specifically oriented towards AI calculations, which are GPUs, NVIDIA-based GPUs. And we believe that many of you, as they start with AI tests, they might be doing that in the cloud. But as they move towards more internal data to be used inside those AI models, that some of those workloads, especially fine-tuning the model or inferencing, so getting the results of the model, will happen locally with your internal data. And that's where we bring you all the flexibility to drive 2 to 8 GPU rack servers in your environment. Finally, and we will go over it in quite some detail, you have specific security across the new AI-ready data centers, distributed like Frederic indicated, which is Hypershield. But then you also want to secure the AI models themselves, and that's the Cisco AI defense. So network plus compute plus security. Let's immediately dive a bit deeper into how we can help you evolve. So in the middle, you see the Nexus and the UCS data center fabrics that you know. So we see them evolve so that they also can take on AI nodes. Now, AI is not only hardware, it's also a full software stack. So we have full Cisco validated designs so that you can start to run AI workloads on top of that typical data center environment as you know it today. Platform operated through Nexus dashboard or through ACI. This is the on-prem fashion. As mentioned, we will also give you the cloud fashion, and that was an announcement that was done a few months ago, but that was reiterated at Cisco Live Europe, coming out of Hyperfabric. Hyperfabric is a full SaaS, software as a service, full cloud operated way to deploy in a very easy way data centers. So fully automated out of the cloud, you will have your hardware, you will have your network fabric being configured and rolled out of the cloud. Very interesting for many customers, also the ones that might have local compute at many sites, because then they can take the leverage of cloud operation. Hyperfabric has been launched now. Hyperfabric for AI, where we also drive NVIDIA configuration, etc., through the cloud, is coming in a few months. Finally, we came out with AI pod bundles. So that means if you have a model that you want to run locally, well, just indicate to us which model, which size of model, and we will give you the full stack AI environment on which you can run that network, compute, and security. And of course, that when we talk about security, it's about driving security over that super distributed environment. And this is where we truly launched a new way of looking at data center security, which is Hypershield. Victor?
Yeah. I think if you think about the way that these data centers are going to look like Frank said, very distributed, also in terms of workloads, capacities, interconnectedness, in terms of like neural networks and all that stuff. It's going to be very complicated to keep securing them in the old-fashioned way with, let's say, network segmentation that's based on firewalls. So that for us was like the imperative to start looking for a new way to organize security for that new environment. And that's why the tagline comes from that we need to reimagine firewalling. So we changed the firewall from a noun to a verb. And what I mean with that is that we want to take the function of firewall, turn that into software, and want to place it as closely as possible to the services that make up applications. In other words, we want to say deploy this agent, this software firewall in front of every container, every VM, every workload that you have, so that we can stop protecting a network parameter and actually move towards protecting the micro parameter of every container of every workload, right? So that's the way we think we're gonna be more relevant in securing these more complex and distributed environments. Now, how do we do that? I think the key of it is a very innovative technology that we acquired through Isovalent that's called eBPF. And eBPF is, let's say, an agent, the software firewall that we can place in front of every container. It's situated right in the OS kernel of every application. But like we saw with say the CrowdStrike outages past summer, that's quite a risky place to be because it can create a lot of instability if you change things in the kernel. The thing about eBPF is that we have kernel level visibility and that we can make mitigations without being in the kernel itself. It's like a kernel extension. And so this technology is the basis of the Hypershield model. And once we have deployed it, we get very detailed information in the applications, in the application processes, and in all the application dependencies that come from there. What can we do with that information, right? The key use case is that we can build very fine-grained segmentation rules based on the application's behavior. And we can sort of build these profiles in an automated way and present those to you as an IT admin. Secondly, if we know that the application behind, let's say, our Hypershield stack has a running vulnerability and you have not had the opportunity to patch it yet, then we can actually build some very fine-grained mitigation actions in the kernel as well. If we know which process will be used to abuse a certain vulnerability, then we can block that in the OS firewall over there. So that's the two key security use cases that we currently are building or have built with Hypershield. And then, of course, we build these agents and we deploy them in front of every workload. But the practical, let's say, objection is always like, okay, there are always some situations where it's not possible for you to deploy an agent. And for that, we have an answer as well.
Yeah. And so on the agent, think about the way how to secure Linux nodes, how to secure VM nodes, how to secure Kubernetes nodes. But indeed, what we announced is how can we take this Hypershield concept and really distribute it everywhere where it's needed. And this is where we introduced an extension to our Nexus data center networking platform through some Nexus 9300 smart switches. Smart switches, because they have next to their Silicon One ASIC that we developed, they have specific AMD DPUs. So we announced two switches, one available in March, one in July. Not going to go too much in detail. One is more cloud on ramp, another one is top of rack. So with that, we really want to bring that a Hypershield security layer and distribute it over the whole data center. So what is a DPU? Data processing unit, which is an element or sort of ASIC running, in this case, on the switch, 2 in one switch, 4 in the other, where it is able to run specific code and in fact offload the switch of specific functionality. And in this case, we will be running the Hypershield security functionality into that DPU. So what does it mean? Well, it means that next to some of the examples that we already discussed that you were alluding to, where you do security on an up level with that eBPF or on a Linux or on a Kubernetes level, or whether you were able to run it on a VM with a VM enforcement, network extension and enforcement, or on a server of ours with a specific DPU NIC, that we now extend this and give you also the data center and network switches with the DPUs to run Hypershield security capabilities and to run Hypershield security use cases. Which are the use cases that we see mostly for the switches? Well, that's typically everywhere where today you probably have a combination of switches and firewalls, and where we believe you can bring those together. So in your cloud edge, the link to the cloud, in the data center interconnect between data centers, or in specific tenant or VRF zone segmentations where you are using external firewalls today. In the coming months, you will see that go one level deeper, where we are really driving segmentation and enforcement top of rack, so that the segmentation is really distributed everywhere. To make it very tangible, I'm going to give an example. A few years ago, you might know there was a secure shell, an SSH vulnerability that was known. SSH was loading some libraries in which there was a known attack. Well, with Hypershield, protecting versus that might translate into specific node rules, which are, well, don't start the secure shell socket or don't start a socket loading that library. But it will also translate into network capabilities where you say, well, I will not allow outgoing secure shell connections. So that's how you see that secure cloud control will then translate policies to the right type of sub policy at the right place in the hyper distributed data center.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the key concept is we took the firewall, right, turned it into software, and then we sprinkled it around everywhere in front of every workload, right? And we, with the new switches, we can actually turn every switch port into an independent layer 7 firewall, so to say. So we took the firewall, melted it down, and spread it over the entire IT environment to make it very distributed and allowing us to do very interesting enforcement points at every point in your environment. Now, I think if we go back to, let's say, the original challenge for which we invented Hypershield, the challenge was, how do we scale it, right? If this data center is going to explode 100x because of AI applications, how can we scale the security? And I think the question becomes even larger if you think that we're going to turn, let's say, the classical tens of firewalls that you have right now into thousands of virtual, or let's say agent firewalls. So the way we can handle scale and updating, patching your firewalls is also very interesting in that we designed Hypershield as a solution with a dual data plane. In other words, the solution inherently has a digital twin of itself in which we can do live A/B testing of its performance on real live data. So in data plane A, the active one, you have your current version of the Hypershield firewall where the data goes through, and then we duplicate the data and run it as well through a shadow data plane where, for example, we already loaded the next software version of Hypershield. And then the AI model can continuously check if there is any implication on the application's performance. And if not, we can say with a high degree of confidence that it's safe to switch over. Same if you want to change policy, we can first test it before you deploy it. Same if we're going to build these mitigating actions against vulnerabilities, we can always test if there's performance impact before we actually deploy it. So in that way, we can actually continuously upgrade this distributed firewall in an asynchronous way, and in a way that you don't need to plan a fixed maintenance moment to go from version A to version B. And I think that's very interesting innovation to actually keep your entire security fabric continuously up to date and give it self-qualifying updates. So yeah, I think the core question is, how do you move towards a concept like this? And because it's pretty disruptive, it sort of replaces your current firewalls and builds it into the switches and into agents. How do you move from the current situation to this future state, so to speak? And the answer to that is what we announced with the hybrid mesh firewall, in the sense that if this would be, let's say the grid would be a metaphoric representation of your environment, what you're going to find is that currently you already have some firewalls in there to protect it. And then maybe for the traditional workloads, you have a typical, let's say, more traditional micro-segmentation tool, like, for example, Cisco Secure Workloads, that's running in front of a couple of the VMs. Then maybe for the containerized workloads, you already experimented with, let's say, the product that's at the basis of Hypershield called Isovalent, that is giving very particular controls for containerized workloads. And now, let's say, you're very convinced and you start deploying Hypershield in the data center as well. then those agents appear at some other workloads. And then as you upgrade and update switches in the data center, you're gonna bring in these DPU-powered switches where we can also run Hypershield. And of course, there's always some third-party firewalls in there as well, that are not from Cisco, but from Palo Alto, that are from, for example, it's a Checkpoint. If you look at the bigger picture, now you have an environment where you have a lot of different kinds of control points. And if you want to build a uniform policy across all these things, it gets very messy and very complex, right? So the answer to that problem is, like Frederick said, the security cloud control, where we have one cloud dashboard, where we can define all the objects in your environment, where we get all the identities from Identity Intelligence, and then we can build policy rules as to what can communicate to what. And this serves as a controller to each and every one of those enforcement points to sort of push consistent policy everywhere. And to the problem of the third-party firewalls, one of the developments we're working on is that this can also control some competitive firewalls, so non-Cisco firewalls. Built in, you have an AI assistant to help you build policy, to help you validate and optimize policy, and to help you test policy. So that way, we also make operating this entire environment a lot easier. So that's some of the innovation in the data center part. Now, so far we've been talking about AI infrastructure, but if we look at the AI applications themselves, those are also pretty new, and although they present a lot of opportunity, which we can read about on LinkedIn every day, it also presents a new set of risks that we need to take into account. And the reason I'm saying that is, if you look at the traditional application stack, there you develop an application, let's say with a one-to-one relation between a certain input that you give the application and an output that it needs to generate. If A, then B. If X, then Y. But if we insert a model in that application stack, there's no longer a one-to-one relationship, but it's a one-to-infinite, right? The output that comes from the model can be different every time depending on the query that we put in there. And so that creates a lot of complexity. And even to the future, we believe we will see a multi-model applications where for some parts you will use Mistral, for other parts of the application you might use DeepSeek or OpenAI. So the typical, let's say, the risks that are associated with this is that the model in itself is very hard to control, right? Let's say you insert an AI agent in your business model and to give advice to customers, and it starts hallucinating and it gives bad advice to those people. That's an inherent safety risk to the model that you need to control, because you might become liable as a business if your AI agent gives that advice. Secondly, you need to arm yourself against bad actors that can manipulate the output from the model by asking questions in malicious ways. There's a whole model around it with OWASP as to what kinds of malicious prompts one can give to these AI models. And so AI defense, and that's the innovation that we launched, helps you get exactly those factors under control so that you can bring AI applications in your business models and innovate, but control the risks that are associated with this new technology. So there's two core use cases. Number one, we can actually scan your environment for which third-party AI applications are being used. We can give you certain risk scores that are associated with the reputation of those models. And then thirdly, we can put very fine-grained controls as to what you can do with those models. Even on prompt level, we can say you can ask these things, but you cannot ask those things, right? On the other hand, for the models the applications that you're building yourself, you need to have these controls on the output of the model that you're inserting in your application. And there we have three core functions with AI defense. On the one hand, we can scan which clouds your AI models are running on, and we can scan for vulnerabilities that are running on there. Two, we can red team your model at scale. So we ask 20,000 malicious prompts at the same time to the model, and see on which ones we can jailbreak the model and on which ones your model behaves in an expected manner. And then that gives you the chance to fine-tune your model so it only produces desirable output. Thirdly, when you're using it in runtime, we can continuously audit and actually get reports on what prompts people are asking to your model and see if there's any malicious intent in there and report on that. So that's the innovation on the AI application side. So I think, in short, we innovate on the infrastructure side. We provide the data center equipment and networks that are necessary to build AI models and to run them. We have a completely new disruptive security architecture to actually put fine-grained controls in that new application landscape. And then thirdly, we can also help you protect the output of the AI models and applications themselves.
And if interested, there are some very interesting blogs that we wrote because we tried this also out on some of the generic large language models like DeepSeek, you mentioned it, like ChatGPT, etc. And it will give you an indication of how many of the malicious prompts and attacks were successful. I will disclose already one thing. With DeepSeek, it was 100% indeed. So, I mean, that's important to know when you start to work with certain of those models. Okay, let's go to a second very important pillar is the future-proof workplace. And I want to re-stress, I mean, with workplace, look at this in its broadest way. It's about your campus, your office, trying to get people back into the office. It's about your branches. It's about giving secure connectivity to your employees at home. It's your retail store where your customers arrive. It's your stadium where you want to interact. It's your car. And very important for many of you, it's your factory. It's your factory floor, your production floor. It's your warehouse. It might also be a full digital way. It might be your contact center. So this is really anywhere where people and technology work and serve customers. And what did we launch there? Well, first of all, what we see is that our world is becoming more and more a wireless and mobility first world. So it is important that we continue to innovate on that pace. And what we launched is an extension of our Wi-Fi 7 access point portfolio. So remember, we had Wi-Fi 6, then Wi-Fi 6E, where we opened the frequencies to 2.4, 5, and 6 gigahertz. And Wi-Fi 7 is building further upon this. So what we launched is the 9172, our entry model into access points, typically for offices or dorm rooms or for those kinds because you have ceiling mount and wall plate, but as well as the higher end Wi-Fi 7 access points, 9176, 9178. A few important things to mention. First of all, simplicity. It's one global use AP. So not anymore, I need the European, I need the rest of the world. No, one SKU, one AP, the AP will discover itself where it is in the world. It is converged, so that means you can run it under Meraki Dashboard Cloud, or you can run it on the Catalyst Center, on-prem. You can swap back and forth as many times as you want. With this, we also brought in a very simplified, unified license that contains everything. As mentioned, unmatched experience, because it basically doubles the number of frequencies you have from 5 gigahertz to 6 gigahertz. And even if you're not yet ready for 6 gigahertz, our flexible radio assignment gives you the choice then to change it into twice 5 gigahertz. Okay. One important element or two important elements to mention is that as we go higher and higher speed in Wi-Fi, we are starting to go multi-gig. So the 9172 will have an Ethernet port at 2.5 gig. So your switch really needs to start to have that multi-gig. The higher end will even have one 10 gig port or even two 10 gig ports to really be able to drive the full performance. That's one important thing. Second important thing, your infrastructure needs to be able to deliver the right amount of power. At least 30 watt is needed, at least 802.3 AT. But if you run it in 30 watt, you will run it in a bit of a reduced fashion. If you want to run it in the full operation, you need to think about going to universal PoE or PoE plus the 60 watt 802.3 BT environment. So think about that depending on whether you're refreshing your LAN or your Wi-Fi first. And then we also innovated a lot on what that access point can do. So of course, yes, it contains BLE radios. So that means that it can also serve BLE endpoints. It can serve BLE tags. It can help into BLE driven wayfinding. We added GPS and GNSS for location, but we also added ultra wideband for more precise location. And the first use that we have is that we allow you to auto-locate all of the APs in a fully automated fashion. So the APs discover each other with Wi-Fi and UWB, ultra-wideband technology, and they can immediately know where all the APs are and map it in the best way possible. One thing not on this slide, but for people in more industrial environments, know that we're gonna announce that one of the 5 gigahertz antennas that you can also use it as the Cisco ultra reliable wireless antenna. So you can now really combine Wi-Fi and CURB or Cisco ultra reliable wireless. Of course, this environment requires a switching environment. This is an overview of our access switching environment, cloud managed or on-prem, whatever you want. Important there is to mention that we came out with the MS150 entry model, and it's especially an entry model that gives you that 5 gig mgig multi-gig and that delivers you that 60 watt that you need for the full powered capability of Wi-Fi 7. If you want that with the other switches, then you are immediately at the Catalyst 9.3. So this environment is not only delivering connectivity, secure connectivity, but it also makes your environment intelligent, because those APs, whether it's Meraki APs or Cisco APs, they will also sensor occupancy. They will serve as a BLE or as a sensor gateway. You can add Meraki MT sensors for temperature, humidity, indoor air quality, CO2. Cameras can do people counting. Of course, all of our WebEx devices can do air quality, people counting, occupancy, etc. And we can also integrate third-party sensors. And when we bring all of that together in the environment and we send that information to Cisco Spaces, we can truly make spaces smart workspaces. Some applications that we have shown amongst others at Cisco Live is first of all digital signage. So all of the information that your switches, your wireless, your collaboration points gather about occupied meeting rooms by how many air quality, temperature, etc., can be shown on a intelligent digital signage through the Cisco Spaces app. So you can have that on a nice board, you can have that on your mobile application, and this can help you to really easily find a location, find a room, find whatever you want, find an asset, etc. At Cisco Live, we showed also indoor wayfinding. You all know that, but typically you need an application for it. Now you don't anymore. So you want to go somewhere, well, you ask where it is, you get a QR code, you scan the QR code, and you will immediately get Blue Dot wayfinding Bluetooth announced. And on Apple phones, it is even without an app. And then you see some of the other smart desking, space utilization. So all of that can really serve to make your environment seamless, attractive. What we say often, make your office a magnet and not a mandate, and really get the people back into the office.
All right. And then, of course, a workplace can only be truly enjoyed when it's secure and safe to work in. So on the security side, I think that the key thing or the key trend that you see in remote workspace is zero trust, right? Because you want to put very fine-grained controls as to per user and per application who can access what under which conditions. The only thing that you don't want to do is annoy the users by creating these rules in a tight way or in a way that interferes with their way of working. So the typical, let's say, tool that a lot of customers deployed to achieve that goal is a ZTNA tool. Only thing is that we find that traditional ZTNAs, let's say they're not really sufficient to create the most optimal experience. Why? They're mainly designed for the remote worker use case, but they don't really cater for every situation. They mainly allow connection to modern applications that can work with reverse proxies, but they have difficulties with more traditional applications. And they're mainly built for people with managed devices. So our response to this, let's say, to this category is the universal ZTNA from Cisco. What's the difference? Well, we not only work with managed devices, but also with unmanaged devices. And through our ICE integration, we can also identify devices that cannot run agents, which is very key if you want to keep zero trust segmentation and extend it to the cloud. Secondly, let's say on the application end, we don't only work with modern applications, but also with traditional applications, because we inserted a VPN as a service solution in the same framework. And we have very deep insertion points in the network, so we can actually create the most optimal connectivity from any location, not only remote. So in other words, we can help you connect from anything to anywhere. It's designed as an identity-aware proxy that sits in the middle between the users and the applications. And we can actually set one consistent policy and a logical flow in one centralized cloud dashboard. And everything you configure, whether it's VPN configurations, CTNA configurations, internet gateway configurations, everything's carried out by a single client. Also very important in the operations of it. As I said, the proxy is identity aware, and that's also something Frederik alluded to in his part. It's very important if you want to build zero trust that you know what you can trust and why you can trust it. So across all the different IDPs that you have, we're going to get information and build user and device trust scores and continuously evaluate those. And let's say if a trust level changes from a certain user, we can actually change the policy in our, let's say, secure access proxy accordingly. So ZTNA, or let's say the zero trust part, is really baked into the architecture of the solution. And in order to be really efficient, you need deep integrations with the network, not only on the monitoring side through ThousandEyes that's built in, or by integrating with ICE to, let's say, bring identity to our cloud, but also to build efficient connections through our SD-WAN layer, or with the firewall to actually execute ZTNA policy when you're already in the office. You can do it directly on the firewall, the same policy, instead of first going to the cloud and then coming back on-prem. So there's deep integration with the network to make it really efficient to manage and to make the experience better. The threat intel that backs it up is, again, from Cisco Talos. It's the largest threat intel organization in the world. And Mircom gave us our Secure Access the award of the #1 threat efficacy tool in the SSE market because of it. And of course, like Frederik said, we are building very interesting integration points with the Splunk cloud by means of one easy connector for the entire security cloud stack. So that's universal ZTNA from Cisco. We take into account trust scores. We can connect any kind of device to any kind of application, and we leverage the network to do it in the most efficient way possible. So, and that's, let's say, the last part to conclude the webinar. What did we announce around digital resiliency? Like Frank said, digital resilience is about when something goes wrong, very quickly finding out exactly what's going on and showing you how to fix it, right? And that's a use case that's particularly useful in a security operations, let's say, use case, because those people, when there is a breach happening, they need to find out really fast what's going on, and they need automated ways to respond to it. And so our answer to that problem, besides the entire Splunk stack, is an XDR solution from Cisco. The one thing I want you to know about the Cisco XDR solution is that it works in a very different way than the typical XDR solutions in the market, right? A typical XDR is actually an EDR, so an endpoint security tool that wants to create more context and that wants to enrich the events from the EDR by building integrations with third-party applications. Ours works a little bit different. Why? Because EDRs can be bypassed, And when you look at an attack chain, there's a whole lot of very interesting signals that can be observed on the network before, let's say, the malicious process on the endpoint itself kicks in. So we really focus very hard on bringing network events and network insights into the picture and very precisely correlate what we see happening on the network to specific endpoint processes that we're observing. And the reason is we can get a more complete picture that way, and we can actually create alerts and events earlier in the attack chain, so making it a more effective solution for defense. So what we do, it's basically like a cloud data lake solution, call it Splunk Lite, where we build correlation between inputs from all these different domains so that we can very easily see if something, a file that came in over email, all of a sudden starts making lateral moves over your network. That's already a good reason for us to raise an alert and to investigate it a lot deeper. Cool thing about it, unlike the other players in the market, we don't depend on the endpoint solution from Cisco. So you can actually leverage Cisco XDR and keep the existing endpoint solution that you're currently leveraging. So in that way, we are very open to work with other parties. And I think the announcement at Cisco Live is a very interesting one because a lot of questions that we get when we present Cisco XDR that already exists for more than a year now is, okay, if the basis of the product is an NDR, isn't that difficult to deploy? Because then we need to start spanning traffic. We need to collect flows and collectors. We need to manage that. And then we need to send it all to central places. It's not always the easiest technology to deploy. So the cool thing is that we now built an integration with the Meraki MX devices for the Meraki customers out there, where we natively send all the, let's say, the networking logs from the Meraki device and the Meraki cloud straight to the XDR cloud, without any steps in between. It's just a native integration. It just works. It's plug and play. So deploying this kind of concept becomes a lot easier, and you immediately get the benefits from it. So that's, I think, for Meraki customers, a very interesting thing to take into account. And maybe to conclude, and let's say complete the circle where we started with Spotit services, we're actually, we actually can offer a managed XDR solution together with Spotit and operated by Spotit. So if that's a concept that you're looking into and you're like, I'm really interested in the outcomes of, let's say, a SIM solution, but I don't have the maturity for a SIM solution, then this is a very nice first step that already brings you a lot of value on faster detections and more effective responses. And with that, Stan, I think we've reached the largest summary of all the announcements at Cisco Live. And I think we now can go over to Q&A if there's still some time for that.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for the lots of information. I think everybody is still processing. I'm looking at the chat for now, and I don't see any questions yet. So just for everybody who has a question for us, I'm just going to share my screen as well. Okay, if there are questions so far, just pop them into the Q&A. Otherwise, yeah, we continue. And if there are questions, of course, speak to us and drop us an email. You'll get the presentation, you'll get the recording. So if there are still questions, just let us know. And I would say for now, we'll leave it as it is. And we continue and wrapping things up. Two next steps. One was already mentioned at the beginning, but indeed it's good to know that everything, all the sessions were recorded at Cisco Live, so you can watch the opening keynote of Go Beyond, which was quite cool. You received the link to the online library, as I would say it. So enjoy watching. You can spend a lot of time, I'm sure about that. And last but not least, I want to invite you all to our cybersecurity seminar. That's on the 20th of March, where we deep dive into the current threats and the current threat landscape. And of course, we give you some insights on how to defend your business better. So I hope to see you all over there. And for now, I would say thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day and see you soon, hopefully. Bye-bye.